petition filed today, we are joined by one of the lawyers of the National Unity Platform's presidential candidate, that is Robert Kyagulanyi Sentamu. The lawyer is Suleiman Kakayire. Good evening and welcome to NTV Tonight.
Good evening, Kanya, and good evening, viewers.
Now, we'll start off the conversation, Suleiman, taking a look at the way you and your team have drafted this petition. Do you think the judges in any way might act different from the previous petitions that have been filed?
Well, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that they can. Although at this point I can't say with certainty that this is how they will hold. But as the lawyers are presenting the petitioner, we're satisfied with the pleading and the evidence on the record. We're very, very much optimistic that this is something we can win.
Well, taking a look at the differences between the petitions from 2006, 2016 and also 2001, where do you think there might be something that sets this particular petition apart?
Something that is unique in this petition? Well, almost since 2001, ever since we started litigating challenge of the outcome of presidential elections, every petition has had its own dynamics. And in 2001, the dynamics are completely different from 2006, so was the case in 2016. In this petition, something very special. We are asking court to come out clearly and at least to try to carry on with the audit of the process by also at least coming out strongly to make orders that will become the building block for regulating the military and other security agencies' involvement in elections. And we are saying that a permanent injunction must be issued so that must be made so that the RDCs and things and other security agencies don't get involved. At least there must be a line must be drawn. Then two, which is very important and something that I think we need to think about, is more or less like carrying on with the struggles that started in 2016 of court trying to direct the Attorney General to carry out comprehensive reform within our election law, because it's already provided in our laws, the Constitution and other laws that regulate the electoral process, the presidential electoral process, that every election must be carried out in accordance with principles of a free and fair election, an election that is transparent, the rule, the principle of universal adult suffrage. We are trying, we've asked court in this petition, we are asking court that can court come out clearly to order the Attorney General and the government to come up with comprehensive reforms within the law to ensure that they are in accordance with the internationally recognized best practices of how an election can be managed and eventually what it should be like. Because when you look at just what happened recently on the election that we are challenging, it was not a normal election, it was not an election per se.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap this up, one of the areas also to look at is just taking a look at the elephant in the room, the substantiality test of it all. One of the areas that your petition is anchored on is on the election irregularities, where you present 15 issues. When it comes to the electoral offences, you cite 10 of these issues. Now, in the last conversation that NTV's Raymond Mujuni had with the Chief Justice, he mentioned the fact that there would be a need of strength on the electoral offences in order to annul the election results. Do you think that this in any way might affect the desired outcome that you have in mind?
Well, without being prejudicial in my interpretation and understanding of the interview and the likely, one of the members of the likely panel that is going to decide our petition, I don't want to delve into that conversation, but I will tell you that the substantiality test, it has been interpreted differently. The jurisprudence within the land is just growing, it's still growing. It's still developing. So is the case within the region, and there are jurisdictions that have already taken a step further. Like recently, the court in Kenya, Justice Malaga, showed us the way to go. It was the same case in Malawi, the Professor Mutharika petition. The court came out and said that, okay, if we strictly interpret that the non-compliance must be demonstrated by the petitioner that the non-compliance affected the results in a substantial manner. And we, because the courts of our land have qualified it as a quantitative test, it is judicial interpretation of that provision which has made people to think that it's codified in the law. It's not codified in the law. It's just judicial interpretation. Judicial interpretation can be understood differently.
Okay.
Because as of now, we've not yet come up with mathematical precision of at what stage do you say that the outcome was affected in a substantial manner. That is quite tricky. And personally, as a lawyer who is optimistic, I know that anytime the court, it is now incumbent on the court to walk that path.
Okay.
Many people are looking at them. This was not a normal election. When you look at the affidavit of the petitioner, the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi, he basically didn't campaign.
Okay.
We are seeing the institution systematic military interruption with his candidature from the word when he became an aspirant, when he said that, okay, I have intentions of standing for presidency. Can I carry out my consultations as it is provided under Section 3 of the Presidential Elections Act? The military and police combined couldn't allow him to carry on with consultations.
Well,
it was seen at nomination. Even when it came, the way he was treated after nomination, it was a violation. It was an offense under the Presidential Elections Act.
well, Suleiman, because of time,
things,
I just have to cut you short
this
there.
wasn't a normal election.
Yes.
And those are things which I think the court should be ready and willing to walk the path of looking at every irregularity as having an impact on the final outcome, and not just look at the outcome, then it draws it back to interpret whether the irregularity has an effect on,
All
on
right.
everything.
Okay, thank you so much, Suleiman Kakari, for joining us on NTV2.